North Korea does not have a ballistic missile anti-ship weapon that would threaten the Carl Vinson Strike Group. The weapons that North Korea would put against the Carl Vinson Strike Group are easily defended by the capabilities resident in that strike group. If it flies, it will die if it's flying against the Carl Vinson Strike Group.
Well, that was our Pacific Command commander of the U.S. Navy testifying before Congress today. Joining us for more now is someone who can absolutely add some perspective. Retired four-star Admiral Robert Natter. He's the former commander of the 7th Fleet based in Japan. What did you think of that statement? If it flies, it dies.
Well, I think it was an appropriate statement given our technology and the capabilities of the Carl Vinson battle group and all our ships, as a matter of fact.
The reason why I bring that up is that it's been difficult when looking at North Korea, and quite frankly, for those of us who haven't been paying as close attention to affairs in the Pacific, to understand what's a real threat from North Korea and what's not. How would you characterize the threat as you see it?
Well, the threat today has escalated to the point where it's the most serious threat that we've had on the Korean Peninsula probably in the last 30 years. This is very serious. It's something that is appropriately being dealt with at the national level.
As someone who has operated in that area, what are you watching for?
Well, the total unpredictability of the North Korean leadership. The Kim family, which has controlled North Korea for years and years, are totally unpredictable, and I would say not totally rational.
One of the things that Admiral Harris, who is testifying today, that's the sound that we use, said is that the THAAD, that's the missile defense system that went in virtually overnight to a particular area of South Korea, should be operational within a few days. That's been very controversial with China. It's been controversial at times within South Korea. What do you think of this development, this news that this missile defense system will be operational perhaps this week, and what does it mean as far as our presence and our security in the area?
Well, I think it's totally proportionate to the threat. It is a self-defense missile system. It is in no way offensive. And given North Korea's testing of ballistic missiles and their really vulgar rhetoric in that regard, I think it is an appropriate action on our part.
The former director of the CIA, James Woolsey, was speaking to NPR this morning on this very issue, and he brought up an interesting scenario that I hadn't heard a lot about that I wanted to share with our viewers and get your insight as well. Let's go ahead and play that sound.
The really dangerous thing is that they can both orbit satellites, they've orbited several, and use nuclear weapons. And if they detonate a weapon up some miles above the Earth in a satellite, they can knock out a major share of our electric grid.
That is such a scary scenario, one that I think we haven't really talked a lot about. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think the potential is there. I would hate to develop scenarios for fear that the North Koreans might think of them themselves. The reality, though, is that if North Korea starts firing missiles either at our ships or at South Korea or into space to threaten the United States of America, we have a responsibility to defend ourselves by taking out those systems before they're fired.
Your experience is incredibly invaluable to us as well as I'm sure to our leaders. If there's one message that you could send our leaders about what they should consider, especially our leaders in the Senate that are going to be briefed on this issue of North Korea today, what would you want them to consider?
Well, I would hope that everyone considers, the executive branch as well as the United States Congress, to explore every avenue to avoid a conflict, to go the distance, to try and resolve this with the help of the Chinese government. But short of that, and if we have to, if we're required to use force in defense of ourselves, in defense of our allies in Japan and South Korea and other Asian neighbors, that we do so with overpowering force and that we eliminate this problem in North Korea. This should be a defensive measure on our part, both diplomatically and ultimately militarily, if that's necessary. Hopefully it won't be.
Absolutely. We definitely want to avoid that. Admiral, it's great to have you on the program. We appreciate it. We look forward to having you back. Thank you.